Roll for Crit is supported by our friends on Patreon. Come join the High Rollers at patreon.com/rollforcrit. The mutant age has begun. For in this Roll for Crit review, we're taking a look at Fantasy Flight's X-Men Mutant Insurrection. This is a cooperative game when you'll be playing as the X-Men, trying to thwart any evil plans that are planning to destroy the world.
This is a dice rolling game, so players are going to be working together, rolling dice, trying to get the symbols that they need to complete their missions before it is too late. Each player will have their own hero mutant that they control from the X-Men family. They're going to start out over here on the Blackbird, and then at the start of the round, everyone is going to be deploying their hero to somewhere in the play area, either to one of these schoolrooms at the academy or to one of these missions in a different area of the world over here. If you send somebody over to one of these schoolrooms at the top, they're going to be able to heal some damage from them. That's important because you don't want to take too much damage or your character will get knocked out. They also have their own special unique abilities that will be useful later on in the game depending on what the situation is. Then, of course, there are these mission piles, and all of them correspond to a different part of the world, and usually there's going to be one or two face up at the start of a round. There are a couple of different types, but they all act roughly in the same way. If someone goes to a pile that does not have one that is face up, then you'll just flip the top card and immediately get to find out what is there. Now you can send each person to a different mission, or you can put them together on one, but you can't have more than 3 at a single mission. At that point, you will have to spread apart if you have more than that many heroes in play. Once everyone has decided where they are going to go, then in an order of your choosing, they are going to attempt to complete those missions. And you're going to be doing that using your dice. So each character has a set of dice that they're going to be able to roll. They are going to be according to their cards right here. Tell them which colors there are, red, blue, and or yellow, in different combinations. Now you can see that Wolverine here is paired with a Storm card, and Storm is paired with a Wolverine card. That's because each character has their own assist that adds on to their initial base card, and they can give those out to other players as they see fit to help them out, change up their dice, as well as give them a special extra ability. That's in addition to their own standard ability. Everyone has a little something that will allow them to re-roll or manipulate dice in some way or another. Once that's all established, you're going to figure out what you need to roll and roll it, and you're trying to match up the symbols on these dice to the symbols on your mission card. Each row on that mission card is known as an objective, and if you manage to fill in all the symbols on one, you will cover it up with one of these, and once you fill in all 3 or all 2 or however many there are, you will have completed said mission. You're not just depending on luck alone here, you do get 2 free rerolls. So before even you want to use any of your powers or not, or after, it's up to you. You can take as many of those dice as you want and re-roll them if you don't like the results. The only risk in doing so is that there is this little Magneto helmet symbol here. That is the villainy symbol. And some cards will punish you for re-rolling those dice. So you can see here it says discard 1 die. So if you really wanted to, let's say, get another one of these X symbols, but your blue die, which has the best chance of doing so, was on the villainy symbol, if you want to re-roll that, you have to discard one of your other dice, making the mission harder to complete. So you have to decide if that's worth it depending on what that penalty is. Otherwise, you keep going. If you are able to complete all of them, you'll get some kind of a reward. If not, this mission will stay out until the following round. You can come back to it, try it again, but there will be a penalty. And there are also these exclamation points, which are going to hurt you in a different way we'll get to later on. Some of the rewards that you might receive from completing one of these include drawing a mutant card from the mutant deck. These are little friends that you can use to have extra powers. There's some multiple mans, there's all kinds of different cameos from the X-Men universe that have their own unique ways of helping you with your dice. Or maybe you will get a bond. Each character can have up to 2 bonds and just 1 bond with another player. If you get one of these, you will actually give a copy of the card to someone else. So you will both have either love or admiration or trust. You have some kind of a relationship with each other. And again, it's a special ability that usually triggers if the 2 of you are together. If, however, that bond is broken, that could be a negative effect that occurs, then you flip that card over and it becomes something negative. And now it's a punishment, and you might want to keep those two characters separate if you want the best chance at succeeding. Once everyone has finished attempting their missions, they will return to the Blackbird, and then we move on to the threat phase to see exactly what happens there.
The X-Men do not have it easy, and the threats around them will continue to grow. During the threat phase, you're going to look at the threat tracker, and it is going to go up as the game progresses, maybe sometimes being able to lower depending on your rewards. If it goes beyond 15, you lose the game. Now, the way it actually goes up is at the start of the threat phase, you're going to look at the mission cards. For every exclamation point you see, and yes, there can be more than one, you're going to go up that much on the tracker. Then you're going to flip over a number of mission cards that are face down depending on the number of heroes in play. Then you're going to draw a threat card. If you look at the threat tracker, it has 3 colors. That will tell you what card you draw from. If, for whatever reason, that color is empty, you draw from the next pile. But if red is empty, that's another way the game ends. You're going to flip a card, and it usually is either going to be something that will tell you to do some things that will, they're going to hurt you, or it could be a sentinel. A sentinel is pretty much a permanent that will attach to a mission depending on what it wants, and it makes it harder to complete. You have to take out the sentinel before the mission is over with. In addition, the other thing you have to keep track with the threat is the color. Some of the objectives will have either a yellow square or a red hexagon. If you are at or over that threat mark, you have to complete that objective. So, for example, if you were in the green, you do not need to worry about that yellow 4 on the Africa mission. But once you hit yellow or red, you do need to worry about that. Another thing you're going to need to worry about is being knocked out. Whenever a hero hits their max or over their health, that knocks them out. They're going to be removed from the game, and you will increase threat by 1. Later on, the player will be able to choose a new hero to add to the game. There are plenty of X-Men to play through. But be warned, once again, when you get hit beyond 15, that's going to take you out of the game. Now, the reason you're all doing this is because at the start of the game, you've chosen a plot card, sort of the scenario and storyline you are going through. It'll have different objectives, but eventually, you're going to complete enough of these plot objectives to come to the final showdown. The final showdown will be built out of multiple cards, sort of making a panorama. Now, the game has changed a little bit. First off, if someone is knocked out, they're out for good. No replacing it with another X-Men. So be a little bit careful about how much health you have, because school places and all other missions go away too. All you have are these scenario cards. Next, the threat tracker isn't important anymore. You're not going to be drawing threat cards. However, depending on the scenario, it could have its own effect that triggers during threat, and after the threat phase, there's going to be an attack phase that deals damage to all the heroes. So in this case, it's simply 1 damage, but as you can guess, when you get harder plot cards, there's going to probably be harder final showdowns. Your goal is to get a number of objectives completed equal to the requirements at the bottom. This case, it's an objective for each card equal number of heroes -1. So each one needs 3 done. You can complete the same one over and over in this one. So you don't, as you can see, there's only 2. So you can keep doing the top one or bottom one, whatever works best. And once you've done so, if you're able to do it, you have successfully completed the plot and you have saved the day as the X-Men.
Now, one of the designers of this game is Richard Launius, who also worked on Elder Sign. And if you're familiar with Elder Sign from Fantasy Flight, you may see some similarities between these two designs. I believe it is definitely a bit of an evolution, perhaps you might say, from that system, both dice rolling games, but with some tweaks and obviously with a heavy flavoring of X-Men theme on top of it. And I think I can say we're X-Men fans, at least to some extent.
Well, I mean, there are so many of them, it's hard not to like at least one.
Right. Yeah, there's got to be a few that are going to make you happy. Back to, the old 90s cartoon and some of the comics, of course, and the newer movies. There's a lot to love in the X-Men universe. And they make for a great game on paper, at least, because there are so many of them with really cool, unique powers. I think it's always an exciting idea for a theme, and there's so many characters that you can play with and mix and match in different ways. And the way this one does it is in, the dice, you have different sets of dice, of course, but you're all kind of sharing pretty much the same pool, so you don't really have like unique dice or anything like that. But then your special powers and abilities are going to help you to stand out a little bit more. I don't know, how do you feel like they did with the theme of X-Men on top of this dice rolling game, or how do you think those two mesh together?
I'm actually really happy because, I'd expect maybe like 6 initially mutants you get to play as, but there is a whole pile of different mutants for you to play with, and that gives you a huge roster. It's pretty hard for you not to at least see one of your main favorites in there, though. We did notice, I don't think any references to Nightcrawler. No idea why.
That was the first one I looked for. I wanted some Nightcrawler action.
Which is very weird. I don't think, I understand Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch not being involved in this because they're sort of part of Avengers and stuff. But there's no weird copyright or story reason why I understand Nightcrawler wouldn't make an appearance.
And there are some, it's not like they just have the heavy hitters. There are some B and C listers in there, at least in my opinion. It's not just Wolverine. You've got Armor and Forge are two of them in there. They go to some of the somewhat lesser known. It's not just the ones that like your mom has heard of, So they do go to that well. And there's what? I don't know how many, but there's like at least a dozen playable characters, plus all the different mutants in that mutant deck. So it is a lot.
Exactly. And thematically, while most of them use the same dice, you can still get that feeling. Like, for example, Colossus's assist ability is actually being taking damage, being a bodyguard, which makes sense. He's a tank, in all sense of the word, with Wolverine actually having much more aggressive dice and assist abilities. Then, of course, like you said, the mutant cards, Multiple Man has multiple copies that you can have multiple of. It's pretty good. So I think for considering it's not like really weird in-depth things they might see in like a TCG or maybe the Dice Masters games and stuff, I think they do a pretty good job at trying to at least give each character that flavor that you'd expect from them.
Yeah, and then there's also those plot cards, which will give you a little bit of a story thread. So you do, at least in some small way, feel like you are progressing through something. You're unlocking new missions that move the story along, ostensibly. I would say that this game has the absolute most theme I think they could have possibly put into it, considering that it is a dice rolling game. The game itself, though, what do you think about, rolling those dice outside of the theme?
This seems to fix not all, but a lot of the problems I had with it. I think that it is, you don't have dice manipulation in the sense of, at least not a lot of it, of being like, oh, as long as we can get all the abilities to change over to aggressive symbols or not. There's a bit more of like, oh, give me your assist card. That way I can roll more of the blue dice. Blue dice tend to have more of the teamwork symbol, the X. And also there's things like you can re-roll X's. And I like that. That makes things not only easier, so to speak, to get what you need, but there's going to be a lot more discussion at the table. Like, if you give me your assist card, I can give mine to Jonathan, which can help him on his solo mission. And then that way we can work better here. And then, of course, when you get the relationships, those are fun not only for, oh, great, we can work better together if we go to him, or, we've broken a bond now. I don't know if we should be together, or, it's worth it. We don't need our main power, or whatever the negative injury or whatever it is would be. So I feel they did a really good job of not directly manipulating, but making it so I think there's enough there that and that in order to do it, it's not just, I got all the strong mutant cards, because you can only carry one mutant card with you. It really is, you're going to be working and talking with each other, which I think is desperately needed. Otherwise, is it my turn to roll?
Right. Yeah, no, that's pretty much my thoughts exactly. I think the core gameplay itself is pretty basic. If you've ever played any dice placement game, you know what to expect. You need the symbols that you're trying to get. You have different powers you can use to hopefully let you re-roll and get what you want. And sometimes it works out. Sometimes you get bad luck, good luck. You do what it is. But what I think makes this one a little more special is the cooperative element. Things like you said, the assist cards and the bonds that you share make it much more interesting. And that also, I think, in turn, enhances the theme, because obviously a big part of the X-Men is that they're a team, and you do feel like, oh, we need to work together on this. Beast and Colossus go over there, and Shadowcat and X-23, you guys are dealing with this mission, because you're really good at hitting harder, so that's going to work out for you. I think that's what makes this a little more special. And in that vein, I think it also really benefits from higher player counts, or at least higher hero counts. You could, if you chose to, play with multiple heroes per person. That's not like really stated in the
Yeah.
rules themselves, but you could easily do it. There's no reason not to do it.
In fact, if you're playing the single player, it's pretty much a 2-player game. You just control 2 mutants. And I will say on that front, honestly, like, it's fine doing either. You play the single player, so you can tell me more on that. But we did play the 2-player as well as a higher count. At 2, it's nice because there's only 2 people talking, dealing. It's not as fun. You can only form 1 bond because there's only 1 bond per pair of characters. And I just feel like once you hit above 2, even 3, obviously 6 is going to be a lot more crazier and, while difficult, you're going to have a lot more bonds, mutants talking, sharing plans and stuff. So I really would suggest, just like the X-Men, you want a more higher player count. You don't want to go solo Wolverine.
Yes, I agree. I think, the solo mode works totally fine. It's functional.
It's passable.
Even at 2 players, it can be fun. But I do think because they are leaning heavily on that cooperative element, which is for the best, it does mean that, to me, I do feel like this is really, you want at least 3 to really get the most out of it. You can still enjoy it at 2, though, especially if you're a big X-Men fan.
Crits and misses for X-Men Mutant Insurrection.
Crits. There are a lot of X-Men, and the game reflects that well, with a large cast of characters to choose from and to interact with, including amongst the different plot cards that will change up your gameplay each time.
Not only do you have a huge cast of playable characters, you see plenty of mutants in the mutant deck and the major plot storylines from many X-Men comics. If you're a fan of the series, you're not going to feel bad or that too much is missing.
Appropriately, the game really emphasizes working together as a team, allowing you to form bonds and assist each other with mechanics built into the game that really make you feel like a cohesive group.
These cards really help in having people talk with each other and make sure you're not just playing your own solo experience. This is a team game, and you will play as a team. Misses. I know you're going to hear this from me every time there are dice involved, but there is very little manipulation outside of re-rolling, and it's going to feel really bad when you say, surely I will get at least 1 teamwork symbol out of these 4 dice, and you don't.
You're always at the mercy of those dice to some extent, and sometimes, even with all the mutant powers in the world, they just don't roll the way that you want them to.
While still playable at the solo and 2-player count, we highly suggest you go for at least 3 or above. That way you can really take advantage of the strengths of this game, being in the cooperative nature in the bond cards and the assist cards.
Just like the X-Men themselves, in this game, the more the merrier.
Marvel in general has been doing leaps and bounds, and not just in the movie industry, but in the board game world as well. I feel just alone, we've seen so many different other Marvel games out there, and unfortunately, because of the initial copyright laws with how movie deals are made, the X-Men seem to have been left behind in some cases. Luckily, we can say at least with this game, they weren't given some quick money grab scheme or something. There is a solid game here, and I think it does the X-Men justice.
I agree. I will say, were this not the X-Men theme, if it were something I didn't care about, I don't think I would be that excited about this game. I do think that being a fan of the theme, that is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Because at the end of the day, it's dice rolling and match the dice to the symbols, which I enjoy, but I wouldn't say the game does anything particularly innovative in that department. The co-op stuff is nice. I like that layer on top of it, and I like feeling like, hey, I got Wolverine. That's fun. That's cool. He can go over here with his buddy Cyclops, whatever it is. So I think it's a solid game. And again, if you're an X-Men fan, you want something co-op, this is a pretty safe bet, but I would like to see them do something with the X-Men license maybe in the future that is a little bolder, a little more interesting for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I still, like you said, I'm not a crazy fan of Elder Signs, and this still had those vibes of like, really? We got like 2 blue dice. We only need 1 of the teamwork symbols, which they're good at, and somehow we keep rolling terrible. I think there was one game when you just like, this game doesn't want me to roll X's. It just doesn't.
Right.
But, at the same time, like I said, with X-Men, and yes, I do think they've done a pretty good job in Legendary. But, outside of that, you don't hear about them nearly as much. And their movies have been also hit or miss. So it is nice to at least be able to, especially this is based on the more closer to our generation of show. I feel like it does a good job that if you are a fan, you're not going to be like, oh, it's just a Monopoly clone or something. I still think you're going to find fun in here. And the fact that it works really well, or at least more enjoyable at high player counts, because when you have 6 people or more, or no, 6 is the cap, sorry. There's going to be a lot going on. This game's going to be difficult, but still so much fun to be like, all right, we trust each other, but you and I are skeptical. And like, right. Oh, here's my assist card. And I think that is a great start. At the very least, that is a great component there. So you're at least having fun with the X-Men, and it's not just the most basic bare bone reskin of another game.
It is not that. It's solid. Like I said, I think it is a good game, especially if you like the X-Men. And there are adjustable difficulty levels in there and different scenarios, so you can just do whatever you need to suit your group. So there's something to be said for that. If you want to check it out, X-Men Mutant Insurrection, why, it's available, I believe, right now at the time of this review's release. You can go take a look for yourself, and if you've had the chance to play it, let us know in the comments what you think about it. Which mutants do you like to play as the most? How do you feel about any other aspects of the game? Please feel free to talk to us in that comment section below.
And of course, if and when they ever make an expansion, what mutants, besides Nightcrawler obviously, do you think deserve to be as playable characters? Are you going to go a bit more with the Uncanny X-Men, or maybe some of the more darker timeline? I actually don't know if Uncanny is their dark line. I just know that's one of them. You can let us know in those comments down below.
Yeah, until then, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
This is Roll for Crit.
Never miss out by liking and subscribing, and you can also check out more on our Patreon.
We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and Twitch, so follow us there.